Hey, so now you can use. Call the meeting of the Cumru Township Planning Commission to order. Please rise for the pledge to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, we'll start with the public comment. Jim, do you want to speak now or later?
Well, it depends. It's in regards to the report.
Might as well wait. Might as well wait until we get to that. Next item is approving the minutes from the September 8th regular meeting. Do I have a motion, or are there any questions about the minutes or any changes?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
Here we go. I have to ask a question. I was not there, so I guess I technically have to vote on that.
Yeah, you can abstain and then we can, do I just include it for next month then? Because, yeah, then we won't have a quorum, yeah, Bev had said that she's not doing well, so she thought she could give us something. So, yeah, you can just add those, we'll table that till November. So, we will be tabling that.
Okay, very good. On the agenda, we have the Morgantown Commons Park. That's only there for tracking purposes. Next one we have is Shillington Self-Storage, Budget Storage Phase 2. Does anybody here?
Yes.
If you want to look here, what's the proposal? Steve, do you want to go first, or would you like,
Yeah, the microphone is not on. I didn't know until you went talking to the city.
I can talk plenty loud without it.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
You need to have
Okay, how do I turn it on?
this, push those things.
There we go.
Why don't you just kind of set the table and then I'll jump into the letter. It shouldn't take very long.
Sure
hey,
thing,
could you introduce yourself?
of course. My name is Isaac Rockerville. I am one of the partners of the Budget Store and Limestone Storage Project. I'm not sure if I've come before you guys recently. It's been a little bit of several meetings we've come to, but in a nutshell, it's a pretty simple expansion of the project we previously went through, and we would like to add additional garbage square buildings to that property.
Just to remind everybody that we were pretty close to recommending conditional approval the last time they came in. However, there was still kind of some question as to whether or not they would need an NPDES permit for the earth disturbance. Since there was another project a couple of years ago that they did, the district looked at it as kind of perhaps a phased project. It had been determined that it didn't require an NPDES permit, and that was pretty much the only issue holding me up from recommending conditional approval. Since that's been determined, there's really nothing else that would keep me from recommending that at this point. Since we got Jim here, Jim, was there anything on the self-storage that you had? That was one of the general
It's all
comments.
external. Right.
Correct,
It's all
yeah.
external. Any internal, like putting $4. It's all external with external units.
Yeah, no, that would be in the future. Right now, all we're looking to do is drive over.
Once we get this back in the building, and everybody living in them,
Yeah,
fine with it. That's a legitimate concern.
yes.
Because we've had that.
We have had that happen, and it is not what they're intending.
And they're all external units, so. As long as no one is looking at them, yeah, fine for it.
So I think we're at a point, I'd be recommending conditional approval So I think when we, someone can, throw out a motion on that.
It's for the past year. We go through.
Sure, it would just be a motion to recommend final conditional approval subject to Great Valley Consultants September 29th, 2025 letter.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have Griffin and Gerald. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Should I turn this microphone off?
I'll need it.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
All right, it's 340 old line, Mr. Pike. Brian, you gonna come up?
Good evening. My name is Brian Folk. I'm with the C2C Design Group. Here tonight, about what 340 Old Lang Pike project. I'm not sure, but this was in front of the planning commission when we submitted it for the zoning hearing board. We did go through a zoning hearing board application. We did receive numerous variances, I think it's like 9 or 10. And now we're back in to go through the land development process. Project consists of a 4,800 square foot, 2-story building, mainly going to be used for storage. It's basically an extension of the business that's across the street, one missing construction business. There is no real new employees. There's 4 employees they have currently. The building, like I said, mostly storage. There is going to be an office in there. And then a small portion of it is going to be for, I don't want to say a showroom, but if a customer wants to come in and look at different windows or something, they do most of that stuff on site, but occasionally they will have a customer want to come in and pick out certain materials that they don't take out to the site, so they may come in for that. Access is going to be, we have 2 access drives, one on the right-hand side that's going to go up the hill around the back. It's kind of like a reverse walkout, lower level in the front, 2-story high, and in the back, just the access in the second story. And there is a drive directly in with a garage door into the basement level from the length of pipe. Sewer and water we're still working through that. We got to go to the authority on Thursday morning. We're going to go there to talk about sewer connection. Question is whether we can kind of cut across his property and go right out the Lancaster Avenue, or we got to run down on Lancaster Pike and connect. So we'll work that out with them. I mean, there's an option there. It's just which one and what's going to work better for everybody. And then water, we're working through with Borough of Shillington. They have, again, we're going to evaluate going up the Venus Tremont up top, and then we're going down the Lancaster Pike and connect. So again, there's pros and cons to both. But we'll do whatever the authorities feel is appropriate there. So stormwater wise, we have an underground bed, a stone bed in the front of the building. And then we have 2 trench drains along the driveways to capture all the impervious. So the building and all the parking lot will all be captured and go into this bed. And then we're going to discharge to the existing storm sewer system that is down across the street on his property currently. I know there was some discussion about private pipes and public right of ways and things like that. We'll work through all that. Not looking for any recommendations tonight. We're probably going to get through the sewer and water first and really nail all that down. But we did want to come and introduce it and see if anybody had any other concerns that we needed to address. I understand there's a letter. I haven't seen the letter. So I'll turn over to Steve if he wants to hit the highlights in his letter.
Sure, I'll take it from here. Yeah, this plan was before as I think it was a sketch plan. And I reviewed that, and I think that was kind of the basis for the zoning variance requests. So starting off with the zoning on page 2, 48 by 100 commercial buildings being proposed. Retail is not a permitted use in that area, so that was one of the variances that was requested and subsequently granted at the zoning hearing board. Comment number 2 under zoning, relative to the minimum setback requirements. Again, they did not meet that. That was another variance that was requested and subsequently granted. Comment number 3, there were steep slopes on the property. Therefore, it was subject to the steep slope overlay district requirements. They did not meet the category 3 slope requirements. However, that was again another variance that was requested and subsequently granted. Comment number 4, relative to the proposed retaining wall due to the slopes and the topography of the site, there's a fairly decent sized retaining wall that kind of surrounds the parking and access drive on 3 sides, partially located within a required yard. Again, needed a variance for the height in the required yard, which they were granted. Comment number 5 under zoning. The existing street is only 18 feet wide, which doesn't meet the minimum width requirements for street. So therefore, the township could have required that it be widened. However, again, they got a variance relative to that requirement. Comment number 6 on page 3 under zoning. Required to have 2 off-street loading areas. They don't have it. They asked for a variance and they got it. Comment 7 is parking aisle width, minimum requirement 26 feet wide and plan proposes 24 feet. Again, they asked for a variance and that was subsequently granted. Similarly, comment number 8, the proposed parking access drive is required to be 26 feet. Again, it was only 24 feet on the plans. Variance was requested and granted. Number 9, comment number 9 on zoning, minimum required off-street parking, per section 1004R, 24 spaces will be required on the April proposed. Variance was requested and granted. Comment number 10, parking access drive exceeds the maximum slope of 10%. Plan proposed 12, variance was requested and granted. So going through the zoning, I think you saw a pattern here. Pretty much anything they asked for, they were granted. And I don't remember, Patty. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I don't remember. I don't recall the planning commission making any recommendations one way or the other relative to the variances. So I think we pretty much just brought them up in the sketch plan review, and I don't think we made a recommendation one way or the other. But I just wanted to kind of point that out.
I don't remember. But I think that's what she just talked about with the private violence.
Yeah, Steve, I agree. I don't think that this board took any position at all on the variance request, and I know that I don't think the board of commissioners had any position either. So, I mean, they did shut the hearings.
We have keep saying.
I'll finish going through the letter. One of my last, I had a general comment, kind of covering the chief's comments at the end of this. So I'm sure I'll have plenty to add after. I'll wrap this up here soon. Going into the saldo, the plan was submitted as a combined preliminary final. Applicant has requested a waiver. Moving to the saldo, we have some kind of boilerplate comments and very minor plan issues, but I'm sure they won't have any issues addressing. Jumping ahead on page 4 on the saldo, down to the assessments, environmental impact assessment, community facilities, traffic impact study, utility impact assessment. Comments 9 through 12 there. They're all required. They ask for waivers from all of those. I think most of those I would consider reasonable, given given the size and scope of the project. However, comment number 12, the utility impact assessment, considering that they still have to go through, the authority for water and sewer stuff. And I don't know, I think it's worth, we're gonna hold off on this on the waivers. I would recommend, since they're not looking for really anything tonight, I prefer to know kind of what Gene's thoughts are on some of these. Those are all waivers that are being requested along with curb and sidewalk. 13, the road's only 18 feet wide. I don't know if I'm comfortable, supporting a waiver from curb installation. Sidewalk might make sense, but again, I'd like to defer that until we hear Chief Bean, and also have Gene back. Comment number 15, stipulates that driveways and access lanes shall have a leveling area. So you have a steep driveway along the, the intersection of the street. That section requires that you have an area of 20 feet that's, no steeper than 5%. They don't meet that, not believe. Yeah, I don't think, Brian, you guys had requested a waiver from that section.
We did not. I have to go back and confirm why we don't meet that one. I know, obviously, if we flatten it out, it gets lower in the wall and fire in the back. But I have to see what the impact is. Sometimes it's not the same.
Okay, so comment number 16, this is similar to the zoning requirements. The parking access drive is required to be 26 feet, they propose 24. This is consistent with the zoning requirements as well, which they got the variances from, but again, they would need a waiver from that reference section. Comment number 17, we'll need to address any comments that the sewer engineer has. I don't know if we've gotten a review. I mean, I guess the sewer is, our sewer engineer will need to review it, but you also have to get, I guess, approval from, that's Shellington, I guess, right?
The water, something water.
What about sewer?
Sewer's Cumru.
Okay, all right.
I think they were ready to after the municipal authority meeting to try to figure out which way they were going and then have a meeting with that.
Yeah, we did not make a formal
Okay.
commission to
Right.
either one yet. We're trying to meet with both to get answers on what they
Okay.
prefer before we get into plan.
And then, so water, then comment number 18. I assume that Eric from my office will be issuing a separate letter on that. Stormwater, I really didn't have any comments that I think we need to talk about here tonight. I think they'll be able to ultimately address everything under the stormwater. I had some, obviously, the typical boilerplate comments, and I did have some technical comments, but unless Brian wants to talk about anything, I think you guys will be able to address all these relatively easily.
Yep.
So, under general comments, I think most importantly, we have the fire chief here. I think I'll pass it over to him at this point to hear what he has to say. Thank you.
Good evening, James Bean, Cumru Township Fire Chief. I guess I'm just going to start out by saying horses are already out of the barn, and this is the problem. We passed ordinances under zoning and planning to address a lot of these waivers. No offense to the engineer, but they were just totally wrong. Oh, absolutely. And the light of public safety, totally blown on. I can go down the list that Steve talked about one by one, but it's going to be a lot of the repeat stuff. We got a street that doesn't meet the width. Oh, even a minimum fire lane access, which is 20 feet. And I believe, depending on how the building is, it's going to be required to have an area, which is going to become. That footprint, that area was bigger than that 18-foot part. So I just wanted it on record that there are numerous things that I am totally against. Pretty much all the waivers, with the exception of curb and sidewalk, like that street, because that's out of my wheelhouse. I just want to widen up curb because you have residential properties on the eastern side of this property. That with the way this is going to be set up, he probably will not have access to it for instance. And this is new construction. So I don't know what else I need to do. We've been pretty good about being able to get in front of these things, but in order for me to go to the zoning hearing board, I need to be told or authorized to get testified. Which I was not. That's not here at this, but that's why I'm here tonight, because I'm pretty upset about this whole thing because access, slopes, they're gonna go to Shillington. I can tell you what my recommendation is you put water main in the street and you put a hydrant up there because rough measurements here about 1,000 feet to a hydrant. And a little under that, if you want to close Lancaster Pike now, we'll go up with that. Because there's one over in front of the blocks. But you just don't draw a straight line. You gotta go around everything to get there. But that's another discussion because that I probably will have a little bit more soon. But I just wanted on record from the planning commission that I'm very unhappy with the fact that we went through all the steps to get things lined up where we need to be 26 foot, which a lot of that follows the IFC. And I don't think I'm asking for anything out of the ordinary, but evidently the department, the township has all the right steps to get us to this point. So every plan, it's there, it's already there. But now it's just automatically waiver. I can't say it enough about it's also very, how do I want to say it, they're called deceptive. It's going to be used for storage. I know some other buildings in this township, they came in here and stood in front of this group, in front of the zoning hearing board. And they said one thing, and that building is not being used for that today. Because storage can mean lots of things. It's in S1, this legal state. But also we're going to be doing there, because when you look across the street, there's lots of tires piled up now. And tires fall into the categories. So is that use going to be required to have sprinklers? And that type of thing. Because we have some other places in my experience here is it'll go in one way and then we'll turn around one day and we'll go to do an inspection and something's going to pop up. And then we'll be fighting an uphill battle when it should have never gotten this. I'm all about supporting business here, but I'm also about public safety. And owner safety, the people in the store, you have retail. I could go on and on. One other real good point I want to bring up is 18-foot carway. It looks like one driveway that wraps around. The other one looks like it goes to a garage door, but again, there's no building fronts. Is per your regs, per the regs here in the township, you need 2 parking spaces per 700 square feet. I think I've read that somewhere. But you're only going to have 8. Where do we think those other people are going to park? They're going to park on the 18-foot parkway down there, and nobody's going to use them out because people don't know how to stay and speak the truth. I just wanted on a record, the planning commission, I am not happy about this plan. There's much to be done about it. Evidently, from the water side of things, that I can have some say in. But I think it's doing a disservice to the township when decisions are made like this. And unless there's any questions by the board here, by the commission, I should say, sorry, tonight, I'll leave it at that and see what happens with the board. Taking questions, hopefully, like I said, I could go with bullet point by bullet point, but obviously it's already done. So I don't know what people were looking at, but this board I can come and speak. as far as you like to authorize per se. The other one, I can't. So, thank you for your time tonight.
Jim, if I can just clarify, so maybe I misunderstood you. Relative to the curb and sidewalk, I'd be inclined to be okay with those sidewalk, but I'd probably want to support curb actually, and perhaps widening.
I think, well, why,
Yeah,
let me clarify something, why again. Curve, you know what, this, I'm gonna call it a gimme. That would be a gimme because you put the road in the way, you can get water to go where you need to, in the proper storms routes and stuff. That's the prime example. Plus plowing makes it a little bit more challenging to get snow off the road a lot easier than off the curb. That being said, my biggest concern is the width of the car. Because it doesn't even remotely come close to it. As a matter of fact, there were cars parked over there today. I should have taken some pictures, but I wanted to make sure I was in my head, which property we're talking about and what was lying around that. So anything else?
Just thank you for your input. When I read the Steve's letter and the information about this plan, I was just sort of headed by the fact that there's an 18-foot cartway, that the driveways, the access drives are not up to recently enacted ordinance. I'm familiar with this property. There have been a lot of people that have tried to develop this property, and just a host of problems that you have mentioned has just been an impediment to everything. It's kind of fallen in our lap and in the board's lap as to how to properly address some of these now. A question to you is this building, does it need to be sprinklered or is it too small?
One, I think from a square footage standpoint, it's too small, but depending on what they put in that. They load that building full of tires, I think it falls under the building plus. And again, I'm looking at it as if it's 2 floors and it's 48 by 100 on each floor, that's 9,600 square feet. I think it says somewhere about 4,800 square feet. Like these are some of the what ifs or what's it going to be? What are you going to store in there? Because this could very well set a precedence for future places where other plans that are still out there floating around that we've already took the ordinances and applied them to these new plans. So again, some of that without having a building on that, because when I see Steve's letter, well, it was last week, everything's running together, so much going on. I was there and asked Willie and codes, I said, we haven't set a building plans yet. So they'd really like to know, like, because initially we ran into this with the fiber optic building that's going at Fairmont, a whole bunch of like, if you ask anybody, that's going to be everything but that building. Something we use, all of us use all the time. Heaps. It ties to that, but they're like, oh, this, that, the next thing. But even those plans came in, it was like a sketch drawing, but it didn't really pay much. But I asked them, what is this? Oh, basically a concrete shell with a whole lot of electronics. And maybe they might get personal. Oh, that changes things up pretty. You know, so it's also the type of construction. I would imagine this is going to be reconstruction. Like they say grades. Steve brought it up. There's some really big concerns here that we're not given. And it's what I also want to double check on the distance to items. Because that's really essential. So hope I answered your question. If not, I can go deeper, even some other reproduction. This is I will fully understand. I can probably say Barbara.
You answered as with as much information as you had available to you. My other concern would be and Father Nicholas was here, you probably would say that's going to be so difficult to plow and then the cars parked along there. Not to mention getting emergency equipment through. It's very concerning.
Well, the other thing that ties to that is you're beyond 150 feet for the IFC. You need to put some sort of turn lane. And there, I believe, going to be, if I noted correctly, between the next step, which would require either a 96-foot cul-de-sac, with a 26-foot carway, or a hammerhead, 120-foot hammerhead with a bridge hammerhead that you would turn around. Now, that was me measuring on GIS today, but I think I can get pretty close. So those are some other issues that you don't include any type of turnaround in that. And somebody can, where to sell one of those houses, yeah, the pre-existing non-conformity in my opinion. It's been there for a long, long time. Matter of fact, I remember when this road, I'm old enough to know when this road went over the direction. So that there's so many factors that weren't taken into consideration. Like now all of a sudden, but yes, with all these waivers, it just seems like it's for naught. With what was done. So hopefully, I answered everything for you. Anything about the table. Not used to being up here at this microphone talking about this stuff, because a lot of this stuff we already get resolved and we meet about it and we talk about these things. That way, when we get to your level, there's already recommendations where there's already some sort of fix to the problem that we're going to run into.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, do we have adequate water and pressure to be able to do a sprinkler system in this area?
I'm going to defer that question to Shillington, but from an adequate water standpoint, the 36-inch water main coming from us reverse water authority process in that vicinity. Matter of fact, if there's through that catch basin, has a bunch of do not know something about it. This is a very deep that feeds the 3 million and the 1.5 million gallon tank, which are the water authority's tanks up in Sugarloaf, which actually backfeed the Shillington system. But on the throw for any types of flows, pressures, and that type of thing, it's we shifted water, which they're obviously going to have to go around, going to have to go through to get that information. But I think there's plenty of water there. It's just that there's not a lot of places to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that I'm hearing your concerns and I think they're very valid. And I'm a little bit surprised at the number of variances that were granted. There's a lot. And I know, this commission didn't make any recommendation. I'm not sure why that happened. And the board of commissioners didn't take a position either. And I'm not sure why that happened, but I think that's something that we need to be more cognizant of moving forward with some of these plans to make sure that if you do have those concerns, that they are brought to the board of commissioners' attention so that that board that has the authority can go to the zoning hearing board and make it known what those issues are. Because the zoning hearing board doesn't necessarily have an engineer that's going to look at these plans or, have the same concerns. So I think it's a matter of being more organized about it. But regardless, that's what the zoning hearing board did. And now we're at a place where, from the Salvo perspective, this commission and the board of commissioners can do what they need to do within Salvo to try to alleviate some of your concerns and move forward that way.
Yeah, it just seems backwards. You come here and get this recommendation, go there, and then it goes in front of zoning, and then zoning split. That's the problem. And two, I don't know, like, could there be, I don't know, ask, could there be a better representation from the plan to say, hey, no, like, planning is not, obviously the board of commissioners would have to back that because this is a recommending body of the league that are following all these rules to a standalone acting body of the
Right, they're an independent body, so you're right. Their decision can't be overturned by any other.
Yes, and we've done,
body of the township.
since I've been chief, we have done a very good job of being brought into this stuff every time. And I don't know where the disconnect was and what was going on with this, but I do recall from my public works days that this property, there's been multiple times that this property has been trying to be developed. And the reason is it sits on the side of the hill with inadequate access and no public road. So there's lots of other places I could think about in that section over there. That they get their public water, they come from a long, long way away. Which is concerning also, but again, that's not for discussion tonight is basically this plan, but thank you for that clarification. Kelsey, thank you. There's nothing else. Thank you for your time this evening. All right.
Thank you, Chief. Brian, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I apologize for not having you part of the process earlier. I mean, certainly health and safety is always the number one thing and we want to provide to everybody. I do want to clarify a few things with the number of variances. There were several variances that were required because the existing right of way there is like, I don't know the number, but it's like 100 and some feet because it was old Lancaster, used to be Lancaster Avenue, and now it's an 18-foot dead end road. So got some relief from setbacks and different things that was caused that's unique to the property because of the excessive amount of right of way. So they seem like a lot of things, but there are unique characteristics to this one property. There's not a precedent being set. The next guy coming in is going to get the same variances. Can't imagine you have too many other places in the township that have that situation. Dead end road. Also, as far as access, we're not making the access any worse. I mean, there are residents back there. We're going to be providing driveways and additional parking. There's no new employees. There's really no public coming there. So we're hoping to put those parking spaces and keep those cars off the road that park there now. But we're going to be able to provide 8 more spaces when we really need 4 total between the 2 properties. So there are going to be, in my opinion, some improvements. Is it enough? Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, that's why we come to these boards and we have these discussions. You know, at some point things become cost prohibitive and that's why it doesn't get developed. But it's a dead end street, 2 houses in the back. Is a storage building there, really creating that big of a safety issue. To accessing those people if there's a fire today, they can still access them the same as it happened today. So that's obviously you guys discuss and the waivers get granted. I mean, the variance was granted, it doesn't mean you have to grant the waiver, obviously. So on curb, I would say access is a concern. I'd rather see it widen the road and not put the curb in because it gives them more room as they're coming up with their trucks. Obviously, they can drive right over the curb, but getting up there and trying to maneuver in a tight spot, I think curb only hinders that. I don't think there's any need for sidewalk or nowhere to walk up there. So that's just my thoughts is if we have to put something in, I'd rather widen the cartway, get it to at least 20 feet that a fire truck can get up and down there. As far as the building use, those are all building code issues, building permit issues. We'll submit detailed building permit plans. Whether it needs to be sprinklered or not sprinkled will be determined at that time. I don't believe it does at this time, but again, I'm not the guy preparing those plans. I don't know those codes as good as Chief knows them. We'll go through that process. What can be stored there? What can't? What kind of use? It's all listed on there. And then there are enforcement mechanisms for the township. They're not trying to put tires in. They're not allowed to put tires in. So. About it, I guess, just to kind of touch on those, some of his concerns. I think we're willing to try to address some of them.
Do you have building plans at this point?
There are no detailed building plans and building permit plans. There's a layout plan of a little office in the corner and it says storage and it's just going to be, it's not ready to submit a building permit plan now.
Well, I'm going to put my architect's cap on. Every time I've done a project like this, where a land development plan was involved, I also submitted building plans. Because there's a big overlap between the building codes and what's contained in the subdivision land development ordinances. I mean, the fire chief has some very valid points here, and I appreciate him coming to the meeting this evening. I'm not sure exactly how we handle this since the zoning hearing board has granted some waivers that perhaps should not have been granted, but I guess we'll have to deal with it.
Let me go over like this, when I was looking through the transcript, I do have a question about when you stood before. And at that time, it had been, the question was, and if the planning commission wanted to see some updates and changes, is that something you would do? And the answer has been absolutely, because this sort of thing fall under that because of the safety concerns. Like you said, you got some variances, but the waivers haven't been granted yet, so is that where this review comes in?
I mean, typically, the way in which an applicant testifies at a zoning hearing and the way in which the decision is written binds them to what they testified to at that hearing, right? So you can't go put a bunch of lies on the record and then not do what you said you're gonna do with the variances you get. But the way that that specific question and answer was phrased, it's so vague that it's not, I don't think it will be considered binding. Now the planning commission has authority to make recommendations that they have to follow. I think that's a question that's typically asked just to see what their flexibility is and see if they'll be amenable to working with the township and the township's concerns as the plan moves forward through land development.
I think, one of the reasons that we kind of updated we updated both the zoning and the corresponding section of the saldo. There are projects sometimes that are smaller that will involve maybe, parking access or whatever, that don't necessarily need to go through subdivision and land development. But, a lot of projects do, so, you don't want those conflicting requirements. So, in this case, even though the zoning hearing board granted the relief, the planning commission isn't compelled to grant the same relief or recommend relief from the subdivision and land development ordinance from that corresponding section in the saldo. So that's something to consider. Obviously, the board can overrule the planning commission, as everybody knows, but we're not. You guys aren't compelled to adhere to that.
As far as I agree with the chief in his comments, 100% in the safety. Sprinkler system, I know sprinkler systems, I personally helped install systems. The building that I worked in, the Christmas tree, as they called it, what we called it, was in my office. So when it tripped, and it did several times, I was the one running out the door. And our building was 200 feet wide and a block and a half long, 2 stories. We had offices, manufacturing, and warehousing. I would really want to see a sprinkler system. And one thing that owners don't find out until after the fact is they don't ask their insurance companies what they save. I mean, 50%, 60% insurance cuts because you're billing the sprinkler and your inventory. That's a lot of money when you take your loans out over 20 or 30 years. And anyone do. So I would like to see sprinklers in there, but you really don't know what you're going to put in there. And that helps the firemen. And they know there's a building that sprinklers and what to do. Oh, I'd say it by them. As far as the street sizes, I don't like that. I don't like the whole plan. I would hope that you could come back and sit down with the fire chief and the people and the building department goes as to what you're actually going to put in there. It's like you said, and I know buildings, they say they're going to do this, but they do something else 2 years later, or it gets sold and somebody else does something different again, and then we're back into trouble. So I would just like, in good faith, maybe start over.
Well, we did submit a sketch plan and we were here in front of you for a sketch plan for this almost exact plan. I generated a letter for the zoning. Nobody had any of these concerns. I don't believe. I wasn't here, but certainly wasn't relayed to me or to the zoning hearing board. Now we have them. I guess I don't want to get the impression that we're trying to not work with you. We went through the process. I met with Bob McNichols upstairs talking about sewer, a lot of his public works questions. So we are kind of trying to work with you here, but somebody got to try to work with us a little bit too with trying to build on this site. I mean, it's a dead end road that goes through 2 homes in the back. It's going to be one of the big advantages of us developing it versus other people is the fact that it's one business. Same guy owns both sides. And he's just expanding what's there. He's not creating something new, not gonna create any more traffic. It's the same employees, most of the work is done off-site, all of it's done on-site, it does home improvements. So, I mean, as far as building codes and building permits, we're gonna submit those plans, we gotta go through that process, that's all dictated by powers bigger than us, and what needs to be done, whether it needs to be sprinkled or not sprinkled. We go to Borough, Shillington, go through the water process, see if they have the flows and pressures. And provide what has to be done, I mean, obviously, health and safety is number one. It sounds to me, if. I guess what I wanna get over here is, the only real relief that we're looking for from you is the access and the widening of the street. If we would provide the width of the street, how do we feel about some of these other things? I mean, is there any other concerns that we have besides we widen it to 26 feet or 24 feet? I have to evaluate that with my client, but that seems to be the big health safety concern right now, is the widening and potential curb. But is there anything else other than that?
The elevation and the road going out.
Well, I can change those driveways to be 5% off the front, if that's what we need, and the wall's just gonna get taller in the back. But, okay. That's more important. We can do that.
Do you have anything to respond?
I'm reluctant to add too much more than what I've already said. We've already kind of agreed that we're not gonna be taking any action tonight, so I think I'd rather just kind of sit on this for a little bit, maybe. Maybe I can talk to Jean and have some commentary with her. I think let's sit with this a little bit. I don't have much else to add at this point. I gotta think about some things. Thanks.
Anything else, Ron?
No, I don't think so, because we'll come in with a revised plan and talk about it next.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Mr. Colbach, I didn't, the name wasn't on the sign in here. Nothing's, okay.
Thank you.
All right, last time we have correspondence, part of public hearing for proposed rate change and general changes. The 30-day public comment period. And that's October 13th, and then there will be proposed changes, January 5th. With more details to come. Is there anything else with that?
No, not really. It's really just, someone's, FYI, in case someone's concerned about that. And if anyone needs any information on that, you can always contact the office and, they have the necessary and all that, so if anyone is concerned with that, we can have the information.
Great, thank you. Then other business, the organization of the commission of the vacancy in the vice chair position since Terry can't move out of the township. Do you have anything on that, Patty?
The thought process was that, we thought, we're gonna be here, hopefully when everyone is here, and maybe for that next meeting, and you can come with your thoughts for that, and then we can have an organization meeting at that time. So,
Yeah, you could do it in November, or you could just wait till we reorg it in the beginning of the year. Depending on what the commission wants to do, it's up to you guys.
it was just throwing out there that he had moved, and now that spot is vacant. And thank you to keep for stepping up to the permanent membership position, so that was good, thanks.
Okay, anything else? Anything else? I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Carol and Richard. Everybody in agreement?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Make me feel as on the part of losing my friend.
All right. Oh, my God.